slowly learning about what her life was like before the journey. And oh boy, did she basically genocide an entire species, and we have to reckon with that our protagonist did that. And
True.
This brings me to my complaint, and not with the show, with I think how people watch it. So the demons. Frieren Beyond Journey's End is a beautiful show. It is frankly a more intelligent anime than we kind of deserve, given what we slop down most of the time. I think it is a beautiful show. It is about an elf wizard who is starting a journey again because she already went on it. The show that we normally would watch is over on day one, but she never appreciated it because she has so much lifespan that she never realized she had to appreciate anything. But she was given a beautiful thing, a second chance to replay those steps and follow in the literal footsteps of Himmel the hero so that she can appreciate him after his death. I'm Alex.
And I'm Charles. And
this is the Day Chaser Podcast.
Yes, it is. I think it's the Day Chaser Podcast.
I think so.
I think so.
I don't think we've rebranded in the last 10 seconds.
I hope not.
Day Chaser, Beyond Podcast's End.
Beyond
Beyond
so many
beyond the
logos
algorithm.
I have to redo. Oh man, you know what I should
and none
do?
of them will be AI, you freaks.
You know what I should do? For the characters, I should put Frieren's hair on like the pigtails. I might do that.
God.
I might do that. If you're watching this now and you're hearing me say this and I've done it, then please comment and say yes, he did do it. So this is like past me talking about future me.
It's funny because like in my head canon, because our avatars look like Tom from Toonami, but they have that kind of like fluorescent eyes and muscles and stuff. In my mind, that's because you turned us on, and that's kind of generates.
Yeah.
But you could turn us off, and it would be just the black, spheres.
Yeah.
But that to me says there's other, like someone hit the Frieren upload on the app, and now we have elfin hair, and we're beautiful immortal beings. So.
I might just do that.
Yes, I have lore that lives in my head for our avatars. Don't judge me.
I might just do that.
I know you're already judging. Do I have ears that are protruding? Tell me in the comments. I can't see.
Okay. Before we get started, be sure to follow us on Discord. We do have a Discord. We constantly forget to mention that we have a Discord, and we're still figuring out how to moderate one because we got a lot of stuff going on in our lives and we haven't had the chance to figure out how to do that. But we have a Discord, so you can reach out to us on there. We are also on most social media platforms. We're no longer on TikTok because if you've been following TikTok on the news, you can probably figure out why we're not on there. And then, but we're on, where are we? We're on Instagram.
Blue Sky.
We are on Blue Sky. Instagram, Blue Sky.
FetLife. I think we got something on there.
All the big ones, all the Facebook,
all the big social media.
Yeah, Threads, YouTube, obviously, hopefully, and
Field, all of them.
Right, we're on.
I'm just gonna keep naming sex apps. That's what I'm.
Okay. All right. Let's do a recap.
Anyway,
of
elves.
Yes, we got the elves. The elves that. By the way, I'm gonna say one thing about the Frieren wave that I've been seeing online that frustrates the hell out of me. Why all the Frieren thirst traps? That is like a deeply asexual character. She talks about being asexual, and when I was trying to research Frieren on my phone, I would type in, hey, give me a breakdown of Frieren's Journey's End, and I saw this wonderful video by the Weeb Commander where he explained season 1 and then a couple other things, and then it would just be flooded with just thirst trappers of like, here's Frieren in a bikini, here's Frieren in a micro bikini, here's Frieren in a bad cosplay that's half naked with big boobs, but hey, it's the Frieren wig. Here's Fern doing awful things outside of her robe.
Here's Frieren cosplaying as Orihime from Bleach. There's so much wrong with this. Look at it though.
Right. And
no.
It's like why do... I mean, I know why we do it. Like, it's just humans.
Yeah, I know why. Yeah, but why do we have to?
Yeah, it's like, can we just leave some of this alone? Does everything have to be so horny?
Everything has to be horny, apparently, except the Day Chaser field profile. It's actually very chaste. But, yeah, I don't understand, because, I mean, sure, do we understand the Makima thirst traps? Yes,
that I get.
She is played as a sexual object of desire in lore. Okay. Yeah. Don't spend your whole day at it, you should go to work. But I understand why they might exist. Frieren is your timeless cousin that smokes too much weed and has to learn a few emotional lessons. How did we get to horny?
Right.
Beyond horny's end. How did we do this? I don't get it.
Like that. See, that's what it is. It's like beyond horny's end. The horniness of the human race is about as long as Frieren's lifespan. Possibly.
Apparently, yeah.
Possibly. What was the name of the elf that don't like her that was living in the tournament? The blonde one. I forget her name. Syrie?
I only watched half the season. You watched the whole one, and then I just have feelings about the theme, so I'm not up on all of the.
Oh, you didn't get there yet. You gonna enjoy the end of the season.
I love the show, but I just didn't have a half a anime rewatch in me right now. So.
No, it's all good. Well, that being said, let's do a recap of the series for people who are just tuning in. And, you know, if they haven't seen the whole season, that's fine. Okay, Frieren Beyond Journey's End, it starts off like this. We're seeing essentially the end of an anime series in the first episode. Like what would be the traditional end of an anime series. That being, they have killed the Demon King. And the fact that the villain has kind of a stupid name, I feel like is a plot, like an intentional and yet brilliant plot decision. Like the Demon King, like that's all you got to remember. They killed the Demon King. And then we're seeing Frieren and a band of her, I guess journey mates return to the town. Yeah. To be congratulated.
They're very Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it's basically Lord of the Rings. You know, the end of a video game where it was an RPG, that sort of stuff. And it's a beautiful moment. Frieren kind of seems cold and bored because she was traveling with these people for 10 years. And the thing about Frieren is she is an elf, and in her world, elves, they're what I would describe as biologically immortal, like they won't die on their own. They can be killed, but they will not die on their own. They'll just continue to live for as long as they possibly can. It was implied that there is technically an end to an elf life, but it's so distant that it might as well not end because most elves die unnaturally before they figure out where the end of their life naturally would end. So they just assume that it is eternal because of the length of the lifespan. That being said, Frieren's sense of time is very different from human sense of time. Everyone else in her band was human. There was the corrupt priest, Heiter, there was Himmel, you know, the lovely, handsome knight who's like the de facto leader of the group. There was who was the dwarf God, what was his name?
Oh, what was his name? I can picture him, but I can't remember his name.
Yeah, he was the one that trained Stark.
Is it Eisen, or am I just pulling a random German word?
It might have been Eisen. I don't know why I'm blanking on this. I just saw the series a couple days ago.
It's almost like we should know this if we're going to talk about it.
Yeah. Oh well. So that's her band of people. Like it's her and 3 other guys, and they spend 10 years on this journey. 10 years of free. By the time they get to this journey, Frieren is like 1,000 and something years old. She's almost like 1,500 years old. By the time we meet her in the pilot, she's like 1,500 years old. So 10 years for her is like 10 minutes, maybe 10 hours. Relative to how she perceives time, like she remembers everything, she lives through every single day, but she doesn't feel all those days the way that
this is a weird weekend for her.
Basically, yeah. Meanwhile, this band of guys, this band of humans that she spent all this time with, they really savored the 10 years that they spent together. Well, the journey ends, they go their separate ways, and Frieren is like, yeah, I'm just gonna wander around and collect spells for the next century, and I'll be back to visit, and blah, blah, blah. And she does come back to visit. The dwarf character, his lifespan, because he's not human, his lifespan is longer than the other 2 guys, the corrupt priest and the knight. So when she goes to visit him, he's still aging faster than she is, but he's just not as aged as the other ones. The corrupt priest is basically an old man that has adopted a young girl who seems to be a very prominent mage. But really what starts her off on the journey that becomes the show that we watch is the death of Himmel the hero. And Himmel the hero, he was the main knight. He's a kid in the blue hair with the sword, who's always talking about how handsome he is. Every time he stops into a town, he's like, well, not every time, but he's the one arguing that they need to have like a statue of him, and he wants to pose so they can capture how handsome he is, blah, blah, blah. She meets him again, and he's an old man. Which, when you really understand how Frieren perceives time, the show perceives time the way that she does. So episode 1 takes place over the course of like 50 years. That's episode 1. But you can't feel it because she can't feel it.
When you meet him again, he goes from like anime character, knight, handsome boy, to like Super Mario with a romantic poetry degree. Like, it's very noticeable how he's gotten tiny and bald and the big mustache, and he looks nothing like himself because it has been so long. But for her, it's just blinking, like you're saying.
Right. Like, in Dragon Ball Z terms, it'd be like if you saw Teen Gohan right after he defeated Cell, and then you blinked and he looked exactly like Master Roshi.
Yeah.
That's
exactly that.
Yeah, that's how she perceives this whole thing. Well, Himmel the hero dies. By the way, sidebar, I came across a really amazing story on Instagram just the other day. This kid who was a fan, well, he wasn't a kid. I guess he was a grown man, but he took a knife for a couple people to save them from an attacker. And he said the reason he did that is because he was inspired by Himmel the hero in Frieren. That happened in real life. Wow. This recent year. If I can find
One Piece is inspiring revolutions in Indonesia, and Himmel is making people stop knife attacks.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was crazy. I'm gonna, because I'm paraphrasing the story, I'll find the article and I'll put it up on screen, at least the headline of it, for the sake of the podcast. But that's just a sidebar. I just thought that was a beautiful thing that this anime inspired, among many other things. But essentially, that's what's happening. So Himmel dies, and Frieren, during the funeral, realizes that not only did she squander a beautiful friendship, that might have been the love of her life she just watched get buried. And because of her own biological condition, her own existential condition, she realizes that there's a serious flaw in how she values life. And it's that she kind of doesn't, because it's so abundant that she can't help but devalue it. And
yeah, she has too much time, so it's the classic thing of like, everyone wants more life, but if you had eternal life, nothing would mean anything because you'd always have more. Once something is finite, it becomes precious. They're completely correlated.
Right. So Frieren,
I know that's not deep. That's just common sense. But I'm like, just to say it out loud. Like, yeah, if you have too much of it, we won't care.
Well, that's an excellent way to put it, because the anime that we watch, which is Frieren building a whole new crew, which is Stark, Fern, and they find another priest that's there for like an episode and a half, and then he leaves. I think he's gonna come back in season 2, possibly. I did not read the manga. The manga has 68 chapters in it. I think I haven't read it. I'm only doing the anime because, frankly, that's all I have time for. But this is her new crew, and she basically adopts Fern and turns her into a high-level human mage. And then Stark is a very nuanced character. I like him a lot because he comes off like one of these people who he has a lot of self-doubt and self-confidence issues, and yet he's exceptionally powerful. And it takes him a while to actually accept the truth of who he is, which is an exceptionally powerful person. Very relatable to me. And
they kind of do the chosen one a little bit, but not in an obnoxious way. Yeah, because he absolutely is so, not in love with himself that, they're like, even the dwarf is like, yeah, I hit him once because he was too powerful and it freaked me out. And I'm like, any show that was not as well written as this, you'd be like, oh, fuck off. But you're like, oh, okay. Like, it will use some tropes, but it uses them very sparingly and very well, I think.
And I think the perspective lends itself well, because when you watch the episode closely enough, You realize that Frieren is the side character of a lot of different protagonists. Like like if the story started off and Stark was the hero, the whole anime would suck. Because he's exactly what we would expect from a protagonist. Or if it started off with Fern being the hero, then we have Magical Girl anime. And Magical Girl is kind of surly and she's grumpy, but then she likes cute things and she's extra powerful. It's like, but then they would still meet Frieren as a side character in a normally structured anime. And the whole time you would think, well, Sailor Fern was a waste of an anime, or the Stark Adventures was a waste of an anime. Wouldn't it be cool if we were just...
Sailor Fern!
Right.
What the fuck even is that? And that's not a planetary body.
Right,
fuck
yeah.
that.
But wouldn't it be cool if we were following Frieren? Like, it feels like they made the anime... It's like the person who made this anime made a bunch of other ones and was like, let me just skip all the bad things I could make and just make the thing that I know my fans wish I would make. That's
Have you ever seen the movie Big Trouble in Little China?
I haven't. It's on my movie list though.
Okay, it's John Carpenter. It's about Kurt Russell is this like loudmouth, I think, mechanic kind of guy, and he's helping this guy find his wife who's been kidnapped, and you start to realize about halfway through, oh, the joke here is that he's the sidekick, but he doesn't know that. The other guy is clearly on the hero's journey. He's just like saying loud quips and thinks he's doing more than he's actually doing. And so, point being, not that Fern is that necessarily, but we are following essentially a common side character. And I say common not in the sense of that she's poorly written or mundane, but in terms of a lot of other shows, like it pretty much signals to you any other show. First of all, it would have been the show we didn't see.
Yeah.
Second of all, Himmel the hero would be he's the, Ichigo and Bleach, the whatever chosen one with the big sword. He literally has a big sword.
Right.
But it's not interested in that. It's interested in what does it look like to be an eternal observer of other people's stories. And the answer it begins with, and then obviously gets toward a more, once you slow down and appreciate it, you get to see those for meaning what they are, is if you see a million stories, you'll be like, eh.
Yeah.
It's another one. It's another one. But you have to actually work toward having the proper lens of going, no, these are real stories. These are meaningful. Yeah,
Frieren, to me personally, it feels like Frieren's eternal message, which I don't want to say this too soon because it almost feels like I'm ending the podcast before it starts. But Frieren's eternal message to me feels like appreciation of life is not automatic. It is deliberate. If you are not putting in the work to pay attention to the beautiful things around you, they will pass you by. It is almost like, it's kind of like the thing that Ferris Bueller's Day Off philosophy is, that life moves pretty fast, and if you don't stop to look around for a second, you miss it. But it's like, if you take that and it made it actually profound and beautiful.
Speaking of which, did I ever tell you I met a guy who claimed to be the inspiration for Ferris Bueller, and I would not stop grilling him with questions because I wanted to see how long until he admitted he was lying?
Yeah, we need to hear this. We need.
Okay,
I need this.
okay.
I need this. I need to know what that is.
So, I used to do stand-up comedy. I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. And I used to do a million bar shows, and I met a comic named Ferris Butler. And he goes, Ferris Bueller? Yeah, that's me. And I went, what? And he said, Ferris Bueller. They based it on me. And I said, okay, what did you do to inspire Ferris Bueller? Just like being popular and like getting into trouble. I was like, did you know John Hughes? He's like, I just did a lot of things. I'm like, did you know Matthew Broderick? Did you know anyone who wrote the film? Like, I don't know what was up with me that day that I wouldn't let this go. But I was like, this man is full of shit. Just because his name is Ferris Butler does not mean he's Ferris Bueller. I'm going to destroy him. And I think he just stopped answering my questions, and it was his turn for his set. But I was like, I know that fucker cannot be telling the truth. That he can't be. He can't be. But maybe he was. I don't know. I was grilling him,
Did the age mask catch out? Because he would have had to be.
So he was
like an older guy, right?
He was an older guy, yes.
Okay.
This wasn't like a 20-year-old person, and I'm like, you're clearly bullshit. He would have been the age where that was plausible. But I still feel it was a stretch, because he couldn't really provide any other information as to why this story got away from him and became a beloved piece of American cinema. So, do I think does he live rent-free in my head? Kinda. So maybe he won. Maybe he won. I don't know. But, wow. Anyway.
Yeah, okay. That is an interesting story. Jeez, you met a Ferris Bueller imposter. Wow.
Yeah, who may actually be Ferris Bueller. I never got a definitive answer, but I felt like, no, I'm not letting you just say that. You're going to have to prove this for me to believe you.
Wow, okay. All right, well, all that in mind. Let's talk Frieren. I want you to tell me your thoughts, because Frieren actually has held a little bit of a point of contention for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, so do you want to hear my thoughts about the poetry of Frieren, or do you want to hear me say my thing that drives me crazy about the Frieren fandom right now? I will start with whatever you want me to.
Let's start with the poetry.
Okay. I completely agree. Frieren is about, I think you put it very well, that you are not born with vision, you are born with eyes. And if you do not use your eyes to see, you will just look at things and see right through them. You will not see that everyone around you is... It's almost kind of like main character syndrome in a way, but less selfish. It's more just like, well, if all I know is immortality, it's like, I've got 6 trillion channels, I can't find anything to watch. Like, it is the abundance problem. I have the answer to finite problems, so it's not that I go, I appreciate these solutions. It's, I don't know what the fuck to do because there's nothing to solve, kind of a thing. So she... I think this is a bleaker show would have chosen to just make her feel bad about that, and wouldn't have maybe been fun to watch. But it makes, I think, the very show-sustaining and poetic decision to literally give her a chance to retrace her steps, where she is going where they went to find the Demon King. She's retracing the steps of Himmel the hero and herself. But this time she realizes, oh, I fucked up. I didn't appreciate who. It's a lot of like It's a Wonderful Life in a way. It's not that Frieren is about to jump off of a bridge and going, Fern, I want to live. But point being, it's like, oh, look at all the stuff that happened around me that I didn't appreciate. I need another chance, and then she gets one.
Right.
So I think Frieren is, and it really does a beautiful job in the way it is paced, I think, because it's a very slow show in a good way. It takes its time. Most episodes, arguably nothing, quote unquote, happens. But it's all this just feeling what it's like to be Frieren, what it feels like to interact with her when you're one of the people who's just met her. What was it like to interact with her when you knew her from the first journey and you're seeing her try again? And so I just think it's such a beautiful... I'm always very susceptible to things that are poetic about time and lost time. So the idea of a character realizing, oh, I have not appreciated the time. I haven't appreciated my life because I have too much of it, I think is a great theme. And the way that it plays out, where, it does a little bit of the jokey things, like she doesn't wake up on time because she doesn't see the point, because schedules are nothing to her. She will never see a sunrise on her life, basically. So, it's a little bit like she's got a little bit of man-childness, a little bit. But it's done just enough that it's cute and not enough that it's annoying. And I just really like how they're playing out that not only, and this leads me to my second point, not only that she is this, good, interesting person who made a huge mistake but is getting a chance to redo it, we're also slowly learning about what her life was like before the journey, and oh boy did she basically genocide an entire species, and we have to reckon with that our protagonist did that. And True. This brings me to my complaint, and not with the show, with I think how people watch it. So the demons, right?
The demons
they're really cool. They are literally they're evil magic or whatever that is taken human form. It is congealed into sentience so that it could better siphon life and power, whatever, off of human beings.
Right.
And that's really cool. That's a great idea for a villain, because they talk to you just like a foppish gentleman, but it is essentially like a virus in there.
Right.
But I think
yes,
this show is so nuanced that I think they are clearly going somewhere with this, that like, oh yeah, they are concentrated evil, but if you watch that scene with the little demon girl that seemed to be nice enough, but she is a demon, that killed that person, gets taken in by another family, and then like killed their son or whatever, and it's like, see, now you don't have to worry about not having enough food for us, because there's only one of them. She solved it in her demon way, which is killed a little boy. And then when they killed her, she starts going, "Mommy, please don't kill me, Mommy." And they go, "Why are you saying that? You don't have a mother. You're evil incarnate." And she goes, "It's the only thing I can say that will make you not kill me." Mm-hmm. Now, that to me was an incredibly mixed, like, sadness, but also understanding, and no one is really wrong, I think, in that scene, because the little demon girl, knows no other life but being a demon and what that tells her to do. The people have just watched a little girl that they gave a second chance to take another life. So I love a scene where now everybody's kind of right and kind of wrong. Mm-hmm. We've established this in our conversations. So I think what they're clearly going for here is, with that scene, is how close can you get to being human before you are essentially human? And now, I've had disagreements with people on my other podcast that I left recently, Shonen Jump the Shark. My co-host was very much not of the mindset of this. He said, no, they're just bad, because look at all the bad things they do, and everybody says they're evil. And I was like, yeah, but that little girl, he's like, yeah, well, the little girl's just trying to live. And I'm like, okay, but I don't think a show that is this smart would just give you, and these are bad guys and they're bad. I'm like, I think even a show that's not even nearly as intelligent as this would go somewhere with this. And then the point, I say all that to say this, he's like, well, if they're human, that means they deserve redemption. And I said, no, it doesn't. Because you can be a person with all the things the human condition details. You can be a bad person. They might be going for an idea of like, these deserve the respect of any human, but we have to kill them. We cannot trust them. They are there to kill. They are naturally our enemy, but they are people, essentially, because how much can you become vulnerable before someone says, or someone has to say, I have to defeat you, but you are just as vulnerable as I am. And I think that's a really interesting idea. The Frieren fandom has decided, nah, they're all bad, and it's great that she killed them. And they do this really cool twist where, I think it's about midway through the season, where they say, Frieren, oh, she was like the demon slayer, and it shows like, oh, she killed like a lot of them. And I was like, oh, that's great. They're going to give us mixed feelings about how our hero, who we like and we see as a good but flawed person, essentially did an ethnic cleansing. And everyone else is like, nah, it's just cool. I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And then, all that to say, I find myself saying that more and more as I get older, because I make a lot of points to make points to make points. The scene where she is fighting, I can't remember her name, but she's like the demon queen with the scales.
Aura,
yeah. And it's a great fight. And the way Frieren wins this fight is she doesn't strike her down with a sword and everybody's happy. She tricks her into killing herself. She sneaks up behind her and whispers in her ear, kill yourself. And she slits her own throat, and it is cool. But I feel from context clues, if they wanted this to just be an unabashed positive, she would like do a big Goku beam at her and she would go, no, and melt into light. When your hero is telling someone else to kill themselves and you have to watch it, I feel this is a pretty big signal that we're supposed to not feel entirely great about this. So I feel that Frieren as a show is going somewhere other than demons bad, duh. And everyone looks at me like I'm insane when I say that, and I just feel crazy. How do you feel about this?
So just so I understand, your argument isn't necessarily that the demons being bad isn't real. You're saying that the show is setting up for something more sophisticated than it's initially showing, and people are just resting on what they're immediately seeing?
yes, I think what's going on is I think they're going somewhere with, it's not that these people deserve redemption, it's that they are vulnerable and human. Like I said, they are subject to they are gotten so close to the line of just being a human that you have to give them that, right? And I think what's brilliant about how this show is written, assuming I'm right, because I've been wrong about anime before, is everyone on the show speaks about them in black and white terms. They're bad, they're evil, I killed one, that wasn't that great. And I think what the show is doing is it's showing you an environment where everyone is on the same political wavelength against these monsters that is going to be proven wrong. It is a show about getting over your biases, whether it's that I shouldn't appreciate things, that I'm not a hero even though I'm built to be one, but I can't believe... Like, it is a show about, as we would say in Jeet Kune Do, preconceived notions. So I think it's really cool, again, assuming I'm right, that the political environment of the characters that we like is fuck these things, they're not people. I feel like the show in the long run is going to show that it is much more complicated than that. And I say that because the show has a pretty nuanced attitude toward pretty much every point it makes, so I cannot fathom that it would leave it this simplistic and dull. That's where I'm coming from.
No, I hear what you're saying. I think I really do see what you're saying. It's too hard for me to say it is one versus the other, because when I saw the demons, I also noticed that they're being played as, they're just evil and we don't have to think farther than that. And then the show immediately, they're a simplified evil, and then right after establishing that, they show you an example of what demons look like when they're trying to appear less simple, and then they rug pull you by showing one of those demons go back to the very thing that they established from the beginning, all of which to reinforce Frieren's initial perspective on them and the perspective that everyone else in the universe, say like post-Demon King era, ultimately has on them, in spite of, Aura still existing and manipulating an entire town with a handful of her underlings. The idea of them being a very sophisticated predator that is existentially bound to prey on humans, to me, in the macro, is unfortunately one of the bits of dark neutrality that exists in life. Because, like, one of the things that humans naturally fear is being eaten. And if we're being eaten by, like, a tiger, do we think the tiger is evil? Or do we project the idea of evil onto it because we are afraid of being eaten or harmed by the tiger any further? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, the demons themselves, they are just barely an apex predator in this world now that the Demon King is dead. But they are a function of this world. That in mind, it is easy to, from the perspective of the prey, to assume that they are evil now that you have context of being able to defend yourself from it. Like if you go so long to just be under the tyranny of anything, whether it is natural or not, you will have negative associations and feelings with it. So
you'll start to personify things that don't necessarily have personification. Like, this tiger is evil, it would eat me. Well, you eat a sandwich. Like, maybe not exactly the same, but it's like, well, it's beyond. It's more simple and more complicated than this thing is evil.
Right. So I'm like, yeah, exactly. So I can see where you're coming from when it comes to this is leading to something. That much I can appreciate. When it comes to the fan base of their being like, yeah, it's great that there's just a villain that's a common villain. It kind of betrays what Frieren is ultimately trying to accomplish. But I have to say, when it comes to how people generally work, especially in this era that we live in, it kind of hints to a point I want to make later about the whole conflict of why Frieren lost to solo leveling. I think it's related directly to stuff like this. We don't live in a world of deep attention, really. We live in a world of people whose attention span is very fractured because we live in an infopocalypse. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a term that was coined, I forget the name of the woman who coined it. This is not an original term by me. I tend to do that on this podcast, sure, but it's not one of them. The term essentially means when you live in a world where there's an abundance of information. Interesting, we're talking about this with Frieren with her abundance problem, but we live in a time where there's an abundance of information, which means all of the information suddenly has less value because there's too much of it. It's like inflation, but instead of money, it's info. So in order for the economy that's based around information to function, it has transformed from this is the most valuable information to this is the most valuable information relative to your attention. That's why we live in an attention economy. It's whatever gets your attention the most. Frieren is written in a way where it would have done considerably better if social media didn't exist. That is how Frieren is written. Because social media is what's responsible for the attention economy. Social media is what's responsible for the bombardment of information that has led to this infopocalypse. And when you understand that, you look at Frieren and you're like, who's really sitting down? What, like the common person, like the average human being, the average, not intellectual, but the average attention span level person, who is sitting down and watching Frieren, seeing these slow scenes of just two young-looking girls collecting spells about like laundry and food and these tiny little spells, and all of a sudden, they just shot a Kai blast out of a spell circle, and this chick is doing it so fast it's like she's got a machine gun made out of magic. Don't you think that's when they would check back in, and then they would get the context a little bit later? My point is, part of the reason why maybe the fan base is overly attached to the idea of demons just being evil is because they're only partially paying attention to what's happening, which I'm sure you've already suspected. But I think part of the problem is the structure of the show relative to the world that it came out in.
Yeah, I have a big problem. I know that in their attention economy and also a real economy where we don't have a lot of free time, I don't love when someone watches something on a second screen that takes a lot more attention to do it, but then kind of wants to have opinions about it. I'm like, okay, did you read the book or not? Did you sit? Because Frieren, like solo leveling, feels like, typing a note in your phone. Frieren feels like writing on paper. And not to say that one necessarily has to be better than the other, but it is a thing that requires attention and actually sitting and feeling things. And so I don't love I know that there's certain things, like I love to watch Discord movies with my friends. When I watch a movie and we're all chit-chatting over it, I don't say like, oh, I saw that movie, I have opinions about it. I'm like, no, I hung out with my friends while it was in the background, which is fine. But I'm like, certain things, and I would argue more things than we actually give credit for, require you to sit down and shut off the lights and just be ensconced in a world for a while. But everyone either doesn't have the time, which is fair, or doesn't have the inner vulnerability to want to, because they'll want to look at their phone, they'll want to do something else, they'll want to, be out and about, whatever. And I'm just like, I don't love how expensive movie theaters have gotten, because they are a valuable experience. You sit and you have to watch the thing that you chose to watch. And there is no looking at your phone unless you're an asshole. There is no talking unless you're kind of an asshole. You have to actually feel what this creator wants you to feel. And Frieren is, I feel, a show that if you are not sitting down and trying to meet it on its wavelength, you're just going to be like, they don't do anything on this show. So I feel like you're right. This show is a show that, because of how people watch things now, where they have one eye on it, this is a show that does not work when you are, watching it through half attention span. It just can't, because it's not supposed to. You're supposed to sit with it and just let it take you somewhere. It is gently leading you by the hand down a very long road, and it's great, but it's not. Not every episode ends with, I need to go leveling. That's just not what they're going to give you, and that's not what they should give you. It's about something kind of more complicated than that, like I said. So,
that sounds like...
I'm not going to start my...
That sounds like nervous system privilege, Alex.
Yeah.
But I mean, well,
he said with his undiagnosed ADD, I think, but...
Oh, yes.
But,
yes.
Those pills help me. But anyway.
I'm joking, obviously, but like,
yes.
To a certain degree, like, well, let me answer your question more directly about how I think of the demons. I'm open to the idea that Frieren is leading to something when it comes to these demons, because yes, Frieren, the show, is asking you to be okay with following a person that was very okay with obliterating an entire race of people. I'm black.
Yes.
So people can imagine how I feel about that shit.
Yeah, it feels fraught is my point. That's the if I could describe how I feel about this season on this issue. It is fraught in a way people don't seem to notice, and I could be wrong, but it feels like it is intentionally making you go, "Oh, okay." And I love living that space, but everyone just goes, "What the fuck are you talking about, Alex?" I'm like, "All right, sure."
Well, in terms of the demons, I think they are a plot device to help you examine a nuance, because the show is very good about putting very simple things in front of you in a magician sleight of hand kind of way. Like, here's the Demon King. He's called the Demon King. Blah, 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 Demon King. But now look over here with all this interesting, sophisticated stuff. Oh, you thought this was going to be about that. And no, it's really about the fact that you have to live with your emotions, that you have to deal with regret, that your life won't end just because your friendships do. Like that, you know what I mean? Like, the demons in their very existence has always been centered as a sleight of hand simplification mechanism in the story that's designed to put more important things on a pedestal. And like, for me, one thing I noticed is that the only straight up villain that the show truly implies is the demons. But you don't run into villainous humans yet. We haven't run into a villainous elf or villainous dwarf. Like, they imply that intentions are not always aligned, and there can be antagonistic relationships. And I've seen the whole first season, and even when you're they're getting into a fight or having a conflict, or even when the music changes and it's like, hey, that's the bad guy, hey, that's the bad guy, 4 or 5 episodes later, the show is like, hey, they're not so bad, they were just in opposition intentionally to the characters we were following. They just happen to be in opposition, versus the demons, where they are in existential opposition versus having a want and a need. So I'm open to the idea that the demons are setting up something much more interesting than what they're showing.
And I might be wrong about what they actually are going to be, but I just feel it cannot be this simple.
Yeah, right. And I'm also open to the idea that it is that simple only because they're trying to use the simplicity as a sleight of hand to promote something that's a lot less simple. Like the demons.
I can live with that too.
Yeah, the demons should not be interpreted purely as a plot device, and then people's minds just check out. I agree with that. However,
that drives me crazy.
Yeah, but when the story is doing it for a reason, that I think deserves it's a certain level of acceptance. And we'll see where the story goes. I'm not going to read the manga again because I don't have time, but I also I kind of love the weight of an anime. Like, you have to wait for the animators to do their job, and you have to wait a year for them or 2 years, or how many years, I'm an animator, and just sidebar, the level of punishment that animators go through in order to get these jobs done, let them animate as long as they want. I don't care that Chainsaw Man Season 2 was going to come out when I'm in my 40s. I don't care. If it means that these guys can
answer
work
for your crimes.
Right. If it means that...
how many families did you ruin by making Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2? I mean, probably honestly, at least a few.
At least a few. If I have to wait this long, and it means every single person on that team worked without stress and heartache and heart attacks and destroying themselves and their family, if I have to wait for a couple of years to get the season I want, that's fine. There's plenty of anime. We're in an infopocalypse. I can watch something else.
Yeah. I would be okay with waiting 2 weeks longer to find out, is Eren Yeager gonna kill some monsters? Yeah, probably.
Right.
I don't think we need to. I don't think a little kid needs to go. Daddy didn't show up for my 4th birthday, so that I can see if they're going to go leveling today. Right. We don't need to do that to a 4-year-old child.
No, we don't. We don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. Which leads to a point that I really want to make about the elephant in the room. Why did Frieren lose to solo leveling? I have a theory. What do you think is the reason they lost?
I think it like we were saying, okay. I want to say media literacy is dead, but the problem is I don't know if it ever was alive. So I don't generally like to be a snob, but if I may just do a little side jaunt to prove a point.
Yes.
So you're familiar with Dune, yes?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Dune. I haven't seen
all
of it, or I haven't read the books, but okay. I saw a little bit of the old movie a couple days ago, and I'm like,
the David Lynch one? It's bad. It's famously bad.
Is that the one with Patrick Stewart?
Yeah, where he's Gurney Haddock.
Right. Yeah, I haven't finished all of it. I want to finish that one before I do the Dune with Zendaya and them.
Yeah, so that Dune is so bad that David Lynch took his name off of it, which is impressive. Anyway, so Dune was written in the 70s by a Republican, which is weird because I would argue it's lefty as hell, but I guess Republicans were built different at the time. Nixon made the EPA. So Dune is a very, very smart book about the nature of power and about the nature of hero narratives and about the nature of particularly like white savior narratives. Because Paul Atreides is born into this rich ducal family, and the Bene Gesserit, which are the sort of like Jedi nun women, they essentially gaslight through magic the Fremen, which are the indigenous people of Arrakis, into thinking that Paul is the chosen one who will bring them back to power against the Empire, right? And so it starts with Paul being written like he's the hero, but it very, very, very much is conscious of the fact that he is going to fall to power and he's going to become a terrible force for these people. He's going to commit a holy war in his name. It's a whole that Dune goes over generations of the effects of the Atreides family, and I love that.
Wow.
So Dune was written in the 70s, I think, or 60s, a while back. And no one quite apparently got that Paul Atreides was not the coolest good guy. So Frank Herbert wrote a book called Dune Messiah that makes it unquestionably clear. Dune the movie with Timothée Chalamet comes out, and people, first of all, the movies are great. Okay. I would love to do them because I love those movies.
Okay.
First one does well, second one comes out, and they were smart to split it up into 2, so it has more room to breathe. It's a long book. And people are like, 2 camps of misinterpretation. One, this is white savior bullshit and it's offensive, which is wrong because it is about how bad white saviors are, how they are harmful to indigenous people's power and narratives. Or 2, they're like, Paul Atreides is the raddest guy and I also want to bang Zendaya while I have future sight. And we just did the reason, and Frank Herbert wrote a whole ass other book to show how Paul Atreides wasn't the cool guy, and we didn't learn it the second time. So I could go on and well, media literacy's dead, but what is it though? Sort of, I don't know if it ever quite took off. I was on a date once, and she was very funny. She goes, oh yeah, people want to say, we should have a media literacy class. Yeah, it's called English. You should have paid attention to Catcher in the Rye when you were reading it, and not looked up the fucking ChatGPT Spark Notes on it or whatever. So, all that to say, I think the problem with Frieren, the thing about Frieren that made it lose to solo leveling is I think people's brains, and I don't know where this comes from, I want to be as understanding as possible about it, because I think if anything is ruining the human attention span, it is coming from who is it profitable to do so. So I don't think this is just people are idiots. I'm not that condescending. I think solo leveling gives you a very clear power scaling. It gives you a thing to see yourself in, and it gives you a very clear goal. So I'm going to do this, take over this world with these powers. And it's very predictable. And I think that a lot of anime people particularly have sort of just power scaler brain. Mm-hmm. Like when we were doing our Perfect Blue episode, and I said, I bet there's a bunch of people who try to pinpoint this part is Mima and this part isn't because she's glowing in this scene and she's not in this scene, but are missing the point in that the movie is literally, through cinematic language and pacing, lying to you so that it is impossible to tell, but emotionally the point couldn't be clearer. But you shouldn't go, you see, this is like this, like that's fruitless, and it's not even the point. And so when people go, oh, could Bruce Lee defeat grappler Baki? Well, I've looked at those, like, yeah, that's fun for like a video essay, but it's not quite the point.
Right.
But it's that literalism that comes with a short attention span where you have a split second to absorb something. So that's all. Not only are you looking at it for a split second, you are incentivized to think you understand it in a split second, or you think you understand it because you've looked at it with the narrow window of what your lens of understanding has become, which is going to be sorted into like a handful of boxes. Frieren is literally all about defying boxes. It's about saying, hey, you know how you think you know what's going on? You don't. You might have a problem that you can't fix until it's too late, but might get a second chance. And like I said, if solo leveling feels like, swiping on Tinder, Frieren feels like writing an essay in pencil or ink, like with a quill. It is a slower paced show because it is designed to say to you, slow the fuck down. There is poetry in between the lines of these anime events. Like, one of the things that I love about this show is that, at least in the beginning, I don't remember what happens later. It shows you, like, when they're talking about Fern, and she's like, when you can like laser that boulder with some magic, then you're my student.
Yeah.
They don't show her Gohaning it up, going One day, at the end of like episode 3 or 4, Frieren is just sitting peacefully, looks over, and there's just a chunk taken out of the boulder and goes, she's ready. And it is cut out all the anime montageness that you would expect to show you what it feels like to live in the poetry between those moments. Like, Pauline Kael, Tarantino always loves to quote this. One of the things that he tries to go for in his movies, because they're all about like crime tropes, but like they're arguing about an old sitcom on the way to the bank robbery kind of a thing.
Right.
Pauline Kael said that the movie Band of Outsiders is genius because it's like someone took a really hacky crime novel and wrote a movie about the poetry that lived between the lines. And it's all about them just living their lives. And there's also like a heist or whatever. I don't remember. It was about them chilling and just being them. So I think that Frieren works on a similar wavelength where it is not about the power scaling. It is not about the power-ups. It's not about going Super Saiyan. It is about getting to Journey's End. It is about defeating Cell and going, I didn't feel anything doing that. That's a problem. And actually having to confront your problems. And if there's anything that anime fans don't really like doing, it's confronting the cell that lives inside them. So
the cell
I think it's
cells.
basically yes. And so the soul cell, if you will. And Frieren, I think, respects their intelligence in a way that is not really appreciated by a lot of people. And there's a lot of people who love this show, and I think that it speaks to a lot of people who want a show like this and who do want to give it the attention and stuff. But it's not candy. It is not candy. It is again, I'm going to keep doing it. If solo leveling is, drinking a Monster Energy or like a really sugary soda, which is fun from time to time, no judgment on that. I love a Coke once in a while. Frieren is like a really artisanal, like rustic piece of bread that's like very crusty and has like flavors you can't quite place right away in it. And that's why it lost to solo leveling. No one wanted Rustic Bread, the anime. They wanted pixie sticks, basically.
I have a different. It's layered, but I have a different reason why I think Frieren lost his solo leveling. It does take into account the infopocalypse and the attention economy and all of that stuff, but first and foremost, it takes into account something that I've been observing about the last, say, 26 years of media since the year 2000. And what I noticed in the year 2000, and I was in fourth grade, right around that time, that was like the first wave of superhero movies. That first batch, you had like Blade and the Spider-Man Raimi films and the terrible Daredevil film, and that first batch of Marvel origin stories before Marvel Studios made enough money to make their own studio. So they were about to go bankrupt, and they sold their property to all these other studios, which is why it took this long to get the X-Men to be in an Avengers movie. Blah blah blah. Here's the trend I noticed: big media, Hollywood, anime companies, whatever you want to look at, like the large institutions of media, what they do is they find a trend that they can lock into for farming and milking content. So the trend for the last 25 years has been superheroes. It was a slow trickle, and then it exploded. Before that, it happened many other times, like when the horror movie genre was very popular. It was the slasher films that were so popular that we got a bunch of Freddy Krueger ripoffs, and we got Jason ripoffs, then we got Alien ripoffs. Then it was, it was like, hey, this thing that's different from everything else we're making made a bunch of money. Let's do that 50 million times until people stop being interested in it. Well, when we
literally got Jason in space. We literally got Jason in space. It's called Jason X. It exists. You can rent it.
Yeah, So one thing I know, so I started developing a sense of when these trends were going to happen and change. So when I started watching superhero movies, I started in '99 with Blade, the very first Blade movie, and then I said, okay, they're going to make a bunch of superhero movies, and then eventually somebody's going to realize they can make a whole lot of money off of this, and we're going to be flooded with these. That's exactly what happened. By the time I got tired, frankly, by the time I got exhausted with superhero movies was Iron Man 1, because I had been watching them since Blade 1. So I saw Iron Man 1, I'm like, yeah, this movie was great. I'm done. And I just took off my hat, and I handed
going out on a high
Marvel.
note.
Yeah. I was just like, here you go, Mr. Stan Lee. I have had enough of your nonsense. Thank you. And I just I politely...
In my mind, the hat you're handing him is a fedora. I don't know why I saw that in my mind.
Right, yeah. It might as well have been.
But not like a douchey fedora, like a cool, 40s fedora. Like you deserve to wear that hat. I don't know why.
Yeah.
You look good in a fedora, by the way.
So, yeah.
I think you could pull one off. I think he's good.
I
think. Anyway, that's another podcast.
So yeah, I politely handed in my I said, I'm no longer going to watch any more of these. Thank you for your time. Goodbye. And they made 70 more of them, and I very happily watched people enjoy them from the sidelines. And I'm like, I don't need to be mad at people for watching these movies. I also don't need to watch them. This is such a lovely space to observe. I can just sit over here and watch these lines grow and listen to people argue and blah, blah, blah. But really the reason I did that is because I had my eyes on the next media trend, because that's what's fun for me. I'm like, I love pattern recognition. So I'm like, okay, what's next down the line for them to burn out? It was video games. They were going to figure out that video games, while right behind films, were building up a library of these incredibly sophisticated film-based concepts that they can milk depending on what the game is. And just like the movies, they were going to pick a bunch of bad video games and make a bunch of cinematic mistakes, and eventually one of them was going to hit. And so we had Tomb Raider, we had Super Mario in the 80s, but that doesn't count because that's not the same window of time. But we had the Tomb Raider movies with Angelina Jolie, and the first one was great, and the second one bombed. Then we had the Resident Evil movies, which the first one was great, and then they just kept making them whether they bombed or not. Then we had a Monster Hunter movie, which I don't know why they did that. But we
had Assassin's Creed that had a great trailer, but apparently was wicked boring. I didn't see it.
Yeah, we had an Assassin's Creed movie, which I used to be a very big fan of.
We had another Tomb Raider movie that I saw in the theater.
Yes,
so,
we had another Tomb
fine.
Raider movie. And
I like Alicia Vikander, but...
Right, and now we have the Super Mario movies, Super Mario Galaxy movies coming out soon, and we had a Minecraft movie. Then we had what else we had? We had a bunch of Borderlands had a movie, and they messed that up. That's one of the best storylines that you could do. Basically, just copy the video game. They didn't do it. They don't trust IP, whatever. But that's how these patterns always start. They they don't trust the IP. They make the movie anyway. The movie bombs or it hits, and then once they see enough hits, they notice the pattern, and then they start milking the hits until they'll start bombing too. That's what happens, and then they move on to the next trend. Well, whenever that happens, movies get hit, and then TV shows get hit. So you will see a bunch of video game based movies, and all of a sudden, we have TV show movies, and people are probably, TV shows based on video games, and people probably would be thinking, well, Charles, you're crazy, and you've made a podcast by yourself. Why do you think you're qualified to say any of this stuff? Here's an example: The Last of Us, based on a video game. There you go. They got a Halo TV show that's apparently really bad, that the Halo fans are disappointed in. I'm not a Halo guy, but
Last of Us is very good. I haven't seen much of it, but I really liked it. But Halo,
right, and guess what? They also have a Fallout TV show on Amazon Prime. So
they do have Fallout.
Yeah. So we're already stepping into this era, and usually what happens right along that time is that anime starts to mimic it. So what is an example of anime mimicking the superhero stuff? My Hero Academia. And so this is what it looks like for anime to start mimicking video games. This is a big take. Frieren and Solo Leveling are both video game anime. Both of them.
Okay. Go on.
And that is why this is why Frieren lost to Solo Leveling. Solo Leveling is the video game you play when you want quick action-packed scenes that'll suck up your time and attention and never let go. That's like Elden Ring, Ninja Gaiden, Super Smash Brothers. It's just constantly in your face. It's just blah blah. It's just constant, explosion and
it's Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah, exactly. Frieren is the other side of the video game economy and spectrum that we live in. Those are called cozy games. The Animal Crossings, the Tropico, like the
slice of life stuff.
The slice of life stuff, which is like
Stardew Valley.
Stardew Valley. That's what Frieren is. Well, why does that matter for why Frieren lost its Solo Leveling 1? It goes back to the attention economy. Solo Leveling demands your attention by forcing. It snatches your attention. It doesn't wait for you to give it to it. It snatches your attention. Is it a good show? Sure. But it doesn't wait to earn your attention. It takes it, and then after taking it, it proves to you that it deserves to have it, and then you just accept that it has your attention. Frieren, on the other hand, is far more okay with slowly earning your attention by proving without demanding. It's two different. It's two different versions of the video game worlds that we live in. We have the big, bombastic, super attention grabby video games. Put it like this: we got Fortnite on one hand, and then we got like a Baldur's Gate on the other hand, where one is like, hey, we got John Wick and Spider-Man fighting Goku with a gun. That's Fortnite.
They have Spike Spiegel now, apparently.
They do? I might have to play Fortnite.
Yeah, they did a Bebop drop, and I'm not a gamer, but I can be convinced.
I might have to play Fortnite just a little bit. So yeah, we got Solo Leveling is Fortnite. Then and it's got RPG elements, but Frieren has RPG elements. Frieren is basically an RPG video game, role playing. You have a team of people that you follow around and blah 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 like that. Yeah. That has that.
It's very D&D.
It's very D&D, but Solo Leveling's D&D is like very attention grabby, but Frieren's is not. It even has chess traps. Like, it has all the same tropes and conventions of a video game of its genre. That when you analyze, if you know video games well enough, and I've been playing them for years, so I know what to look for. But I really truly believe that Solo Leveling won over Frieren because of second screen syndrome. It's just that, like, when people watch anything, I actually spoke about this with my mentor, and he was very upset with this idea and flagrantly rejected it. But like he's almost 60 years old. He doesn't feel like people could possibly do things the way that they did. He has a hard time accepting how bad the world has gotten since he was younger, which I totally understand. But this is the reality of the world. Back when we were younger, before social media, when you went to see a movie, you sat there and watched the movie. If you had the ability to do that, if you had the nervous system that allowed for it, you went there, you sat down, you got your snacks, maybe you snuck some food in if you didn't buy it, you watched the whole movie, you went home, you formed an opinion. Now, you go into a movie, and they may have to get you to zip your phone closed and leave it outside the theater, because most people will take their phones out when the story gets too slow, and they'll look at their phone, the text about the movie. They won't even talk to each other. They'll be dead silent, but the ceiling of the theater will be illuminated with the glow of phone lights, because they're looking down at the screen and all of a sudden a big explosion happens on the larger screen in front of them, and then they pay attention again. And depending on how good those explosive moments are, that's how they form their opinions, and they miss the whole plot. This is why people think John Wick is about a guy who kills for his dog, as opposed to a guy who is so traumatized by how his wife died that he abandoned his job as an assassin, of which he was the best in the world. And when she passed away, she loved him so much that she gave him a pet in order to allow him to do something other than grieve. And then somebody who didn't care for him killed that pet, so it's like they killed his wife, and every time they kill his pets, they kill his wife over and over and over again, and it resets his rampage. That's what John Wick is actually about, and I bet you everybody who heard me say that had no idea. That's the world we live in. That's why Solo Leveling won. So yeah, in summary, what I'm trying to say is the reason Frieren lost to Solo Leveling is because of second screen media culture. Frieren does not appeal to second screen culture the way Solo Leveling does. That's an unfortunate truth, which in a way kind of justifies why the Frieren crowd is upset in the first place. I don't know if any of them thought of it like this. I did, and I like Solo Leveling, but I rather take the whole truth as opposed to the part of the truth that I like. That doesn't mean I think Solo Leveling's better. I've seen all of Solo Leveling. I've now seen all of Frieren Season 1. At the time of this recording, Season 2 just came out and there's only 4 episodes out. I haven't seen them yet. Solo Leveling is far more sophisticated of an anime. Frieren is a far more sophisticated anime than Solo Leveling. That doesn't mean it's better. Because and the reason why is mainly because Solo Leveling and Frieren are just two different leagues. Like you wouldn't buy Animal Crossing and Elden Ring and say one of those is better than the other when they give you two entirely different experiences. Those are two different value propositions and use cases. However, one of them is going to appeal more than the other.
You're not buying like a Bach concerto CD and be like, there is not one hip hop rhyme in this whole thing. Garbage. Like, why did you buy it then?
Exactly. Like, if you want to, that's actually a very good. They're different genres. It's different tastes. They're different anime. You know.
Yes.
But unfortunately, one of them is gonna sync up to the zeitgeist than the other, and it could be really cheap like that sometimes. I'm sorry. Yeah. It really sucks. Final thoughts, Alex. What are your thoughts?
Final thoughts. I don't want to sound like a snob, but I do vibe more with something that is slowly showing me how I could be wrong about my life. I love that a genre that is challenging in that way. I have talked to people in my life who get angry when a piece of media does that. I don't understand that. I think, I don't like to use the phrase grow up and touch grass a lot, but some people grow up and touch grass, and sometimes your media should tell you that. Sometimes your media needs to tell you no, and a lot of people don't like that. And I really don't want to sound like a snob, but I do think that Frieren is a show that asks you to examine your own choices through someone else's making good on their failures. And I just don't think a lot of people... It's like, so when I was a philosophy major, and I was in Philosophy 101, and I was at a Jesuit college, which is like a Catholic school, but like It's like Catholicism with science, and like if you wanted to, you could just treat it like a school, and if you wanted to, you could treat it like a religious school. It was there. So a lot of the kids were Catholic. The philosophy teacher goes, "Do you know that there are many thinkers who think that you don't exist?" And you saw half the people go like, "Oh," and either have people go, they just instantly got angry, and it kind of split the herd in a lot of ways. And I just feel like I love when a piece of media challenges me in its pacing, when it is slower than my brain wants to go, and it doesn't just give me what I want when I want it. It actually wants to tell me things that might be uncomfortable in a beautiful way. Because Frieren, I think, is a great show because it deals with a lot of uncomfortable truths. And I don't mean uncomfortable truths in that edgelord, comedian kind of a way, but like, it is so concerned with loss and redemption that will never quite make up for lost time, but it will be something, stuff like that I just really appreciate it. And the fact that this show kind of makes its own time, it doesn't hurry the fuck up because it thinks you might switch away. It goes at the pace that it feels it should go. It goes at the pace... Get ready for the tagline. It goes at the pace of life. It goes at the pace of life. It goes at a pace that is very languid on purpose because it wants you to slow the fuck down and think about your feelings. And I think this show should deeply be appreciated for this. And also, the going somewhere with the goddamn demons, mark my fucking words.
Final thoughts from me. No more Frieren thirst traps. I'm tired of them.
None. We can both agree on that.
I'm so sick of it. It doesn't look right. It's never gonna look right. You can't just put big titties on anything and just call it a day. It's not gonna work every time. I'm sorry.
It's not a day. It's not a day, sir.
It's not a day. It's not gonna look. It don't always fit. I'm sorry. If you out there gooning the Frieren because the thirst trappers, and these girls are smart out here. They smart out here. They know what you're looking at. They know what their audience is. They see your analytics and demographics. They know what you want, and they're going to give you what you want. But I'm telling you, you were messing up the culture with your ejaculate. Stop it.
You're jerking off to the asexual elf queen on a journey, and you're ruining it for the rest of us.
God. Jeez.
You're throwing off the laws of nature, man. Stop it.
I've had enough. Can we just watch the show and nobody pull their nuts out? Can we do that once? Just once? Can we do that once?
Okay. I love that the journey's end of this podcast was, wow, this show's really good. Wow, this show is misunderstood. Wow, this show is so misunderstood that it lost a big award. God damn it, people are too horny and it ruins art. It ruins everything for that matter. Anyway, good night, everybody.
Yeah.
That's an interesting arc we just went on, considering we didn't quite know where this episode would go.
Oh, before we go, Discord, social media. We have a Discord. Find us on Discord. Be sure to join our Discord. We are on social media. I drop shorts at midnight every single night. Sometimes I miss. Most days this year I will not. It is my goal to drop one short every single night at midnight. If I miss a day, I'll try to drop multiple on another day. Same thing with the podcast. We'll try to drop one every single week. If you want to talk to us directly, find us on Discord at Day Chaser Media. Not the Day Chaser podcast. The Discord that we're going under, the handle is Day Chaser Media, because that is the actual brand. We have our video essay page and we have the podcast page, but it's all going to be funneled to that one spot, Day Chaser Media, discord.com. Hope to see you there. See you in the next one. Goodbye.